Hello, I'm David Spring. In this video, I would like to explain why I am running for Washington State Superintendent. As a parent, teacher, and taxpayer, I believe every child deserves a quality education. Having a master's degree in child development, I understand how crucial it is that each and every child has an experienced teacher and a safe school environment. But I also think it was wrong for the current superintendent to shut down every school in the state, regardless of the circumstances in the school district. I am therefore running for superintendent to restore common sense and local control to our public schools. Here are some examples of what I mean by common sense and local control. It makes no sense to shut down schools for months at a time when there was not even a single case of a child anywhere in our state transmitting the coronavirus to any adult. It makes even less sense when the risk of a child getting the coronavirus is less than the risk of a child getting the common flu. The scientific research, which includes 78 studies from around the world, has been consistent and clear on this point. Thanks to their remarkable immune system, children are not at risk to adults, and adults are not at risk to children as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Despite the fact that there was no danger to either children or adults in leaving the schools open, the superintendent shut down all of our schools based upon a fake science report paid for by Bill Gates. On March 15th, the superintendent stated that 2 million people in the U.S. can die from the coronavirus. Why did he say this? The answer is that he fell for a fake science report published by a guy named Neil Ferguson, claiming that 2 million people in the U.S. would be killed by the coronavirus unless people were all locked up in their homes. Neil's college was paid more than $100 million by Bill Gates. Then, based on this grossly mistaken belief, on March 20th, the superintendent agreed with our governor to shut down every public school in Washington state. Schools which were then closed for 3 months, severely harming the education of over 1 million students for no good reason. Now, this is a table comparing the coronavirus to the seasonal flu and the 1918 Spanish flu. You can see that the coronavirus is similar to the seasonal flu, and the 1918 Spanish flu was 30 times worse than either the seasonal flu or the coronavirus. For example, you can see that the seasonal flu has about 66,000 fatalities per year in the United States, which converts to about 200 fatalities per million population. The coronavirus, at least as at this point, has about 80,000 fatalities, which, as I explain in a book that I've written on this, the real fatalities are actually only about half of the reported fatalities, and 40,000 divided by 330 million people comes to 121 fatalities per million of population. I predict that by the end of the month, the total number of reported fatalities for the coronavirus is going to be 120,000. That will convert to 60,000, and again divided by 330 million comes to 182 fatalities per million population. Now you compare this to 6,553 per million population, and you can see that the Spanish flu was 30 times more fatal than either the coronavirus or the seasonal flu. And you can also see that the seasonal flu and the coronavirus are about the same in terms of their fatalities. Now, what happened here is that the state superintendent, even during the 1918 flu, the state superintendent back then did not shut down any schools, despite the fact that the 1918 flu had a fatality rate 30 times worse than the coronavirus. Instead, in 1918, the superintendent placed the decision to close or not close schools where it belonged, in the hands of the people who knew the local risk the best, the local school board. Only a few school districts closed their schools, and even then, they were only closed for an average of 3 to 4 weeks, not 3 months. Now, this terrible abuse of power on the part of Olympia bureaucrats must end. For more than 120 years, Washington was a local control state. We need to return to being a local control state, and we need to trust that local school boards know what is best for the students in their school district. However, shutting down all the schools and ignoring the local school boards was not the worst crime committed against our students and their teachers. A far more devastating impact was the needless destruction of hundreds of thousands of local small businesses, as this will adversely impact school funding for years to come. Now, the budget shortfall for the coming biennium is now estimated to be more than $7 billion. Each $1 billion means firing the equivalent of 10,000 teachers, administrators, or support staff, further worsening the crime against our kids in our schools. This is at a time when school districts are already laying off teachers, and at a time when our students are already subjected to among the highest class sizes in the nation. This forced lockdown will also cost hundreds of thousands of parents their job and will dramatically increase homelessness in our state. I estimate that for every person killed by the coronavirus, at least 10 will be killed by the economic lockdown. What is most tragic is that there never was any need to shut down our schools or our economy to begin with. Please take a very close look at this chart. It shows that severe coronavirus infections, the blue line, peaked on March 4th. Coronavirus hospital admissions in the U.S., the red line, peaked on March 14th at 90,000 cases. By the time the shutdown and school closure orders were issued on March 20th, thanks to a remarkable immune system, severe coronavirus infections had already fallen from 90,000 cases to 60,000 cases, a drop of more than 50% before the first shutdown order was even issued. This data makes it clear that the current reduction in hospital admissions and fatalities is due entirely to the human immune system, which for nearly all of us is very capable of handling the coronavirus. Now, another problem with the lockdown is that social isolation harms our immune system, both from lack of exercise and the extreme stress of listening to the mass hysteria media all day long, not going outside and getting any sunshine. Thus, misguided government lockdown orders are actually prolonging infections and fatalities. They make the situation worse and not better. This is a slide of how our immune system actually works. You can see that the coronavirus, or any flu virus, creates antigen-presenting cells, which then causes the body to produce T cells. These T cells not only kill the flu virus directly, but they also help create antibodies that block new viruses. Now, what we need to understand about this is if we don't expose people, and particularly kids, to the coronavirus, then our immune system cannot produce coronavirus blocking antibodies. And we run the risk that later on in the year, like this fall, when the immune system is going to be high in the summer, I don't think we have any risk of the coronavirus then. But in the fall, the immune system starts weakening again. And if we haven't produced these antibodies by the fall, we can have a second bounce where there's actually more fatalities in the fall than there were in the springtime. Social distancing is a perfect example of an extremely bad, top-down, one-size-fits-no-one policy that has no scientific basis and simply represents a failure to understand how well the human immune system actually works in protecting us from the coronavirus. Now, as one of many examples of why forcing people to hide in their houses actually increases the risks, this is the evidence. Studies from New York have now shown that the vast majority of coronavirus hospital admissions consist of people who followed the social distancing mandates and rarely, if ever, left their homes. A survey of 1,000 new patients at 100 New York hospitals confirmed that 66% of coronavirus admissions were people who were following government guidelines to not leave their homes. An additional 18% were locked down in nursing homes and also never went outside. The New York Governor Cuomo stated when he reported this study, "We thought maybe they were taking public transportation, But actually no, because these people were literally at home the entire time. Now, in fact, very few of these people were taking public transportation. The majority of these people were elderly and even had someone else doing their shopping for them. Very few of them were working. Most were either retired or unemployed. Almost none of these patients were frontline essential workers. This is why locking people up never should have happened in the first place. Locking people in their homes simply depresses their immune system and makes the risk greater. Now, here's another critical study. On April 11th of 2020, some real scientists published a real study confirming that actual cases of the coronavirus were 50 times greater than confirmed cases. Now, this means that the risk of death from the coronavirus was 50 times less than previously reported. This study has now been confirmed by several other studies in several states, including California and New York. But it also means that nearly 1 million people in Washington state already have the coronavirus. But thanks to our wonderful immune system, they don't have any symptoms. You can't tell. They just have the virus. They're just carrying the virus. They have the antibodies, but they have no symptoms because of our immune system. This is why massive testing and contact tracing will not work. The tests themselves are not accurate. And there are now simply too many people in our state with the coronavirus to try to track down all 1 million of them. Now, I became so concerned about the harm to our schools and our harm to our economy of this lockdown that I wrote a 400-page book about it, which you can read for free at our website, commonsensebook.org. The book includes a summary of more than 200 studies and quotes from more than 50 doctors. Needlessly locking people up and greatly increasing the number of fatalities from hundreds of thousands of people losing their job is only one of many crimes being committed by misguided Olympia bureaucrats. In the coming months, nearly every family in Washington state will have to deal with the ever-increasing consequences of the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs. Parents will not be able to provide food or shelter for their families. Young adults will not be able to find a job no matter how hard they try. The coming mega depression will be much worse than even the Great Depression of the 1930s, and all because hapless bureaucrats in Olympia believe some fake studies paid for by billionaires claiming falsely that 2 million people were going to die unless everyone is hid inside their homes. This insanity has to stop, and that is why I am running for state superintendent, to end the insanity in Olympia and restore common sense, and to return local control of our public schools to public school boards. I hope you will join me in ending the reign of error in Olympia. Together we can and will restore sanity and common sense to our schools and to our state government. Please subscribe to this channel and share this video with anyone you know who cares about the truth and about the future of our students and our economy. I will be posting more videos here in the coming weeks on how we can improve our schools here in Washington State. If you want to know more about our campaign, please visit our campaign website, which is spring4schools.org. Again, I am David Spring, and I'm running for state superintendent to restore common sense in Olympia and local control to our local school districts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.